All right, you guys, good evening. Thanks for joining us this evening for the McMinnville City Council Candidate Forum. My name is Dr. Patrick George. I am the chair-elect for the McMinnville Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. At this time, I think we need to give a shout out to Linfield. So I'd like to thank Linfield University, President Miles Davis, the staff, the faculty, the students for their partnership on this event. And especially a big shout out to Debbie Harmon Ferry for all her contribution and hard work into organizing this event tonight. She's done a great job coordinating lots of moving parts to this. So she's done a great job. So we thank her for that. We look forward to hearing from each of the candidates this evening to learn more about them and what they hope to accomplish as a member of the City Council. So right now I'd like to introduce to you my fellow moderator. He's Professor Kevin Curry. He's a Linfield University faculty member. Dr. Curry.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to participate today. And Dr. George, thank you for joining as a co-moderator tonight. As he said, I'm Dr. Kevin Curry. I'm a faculty member in the Journalism and Media Studies Department here at Linfield. I'm honored to be moderating this forum on behalf of Linfield University. Everyone should know that all candidates for the positions of mayor and city council were invited to participate in the forum. In fact, all had planned to attend tonight, but one was called away at the last minute due to a family emergency. And you'll hear from the other 7 tonight. I also want to thank everybody online that's joining us via YouTube tonight to watch. Helping choose the leaders in your local community is one of the most important things we do. So thank you for being here and becoming a better informed voter. Let me begin by setting some ground rules. This is a candidate forum, not a debate. Therefore, will not be time for rebuttal between the candidates. I like to think of it as almost like a video voters pamphlet. Although I know I don't need to say this, I will nonetheless. Stay respectful and be respectful of others. Speak to the question, answer the question that we present to you. We want to learn about who you are as a candidate and how you'll make McMinnville a better place to work, live, and grow. We have some time constraints. There are 6 questions for each of you to respond to. For the first question, we're going to give you a minute to respond. And for the 5 questions following that, you'll have 2 minutes each to respond. A timer will give you the time signals via the chat on Zoom, and you'll get notification when you have 1 minute left, 30 seconds, and 10 seconds. And then the moderators will call on you to answer the question when it's your turn to speak. We're alternating which position goes first, as well as which candidate goes first within that position. And these guidelines were sent to you in advance to give you an opportunity to ask questions and in advance of the forum. So I'll kick it off with the first question. This is a 1 minute question to each candidate. And it's basically to introduce yourself and tell us, why are you running for the position that you're running for? We'll begin first with the mayoral candidates. Please, Mayor Scott Hill, your 1 minute begins now, and Heidi Parker is on deck.
Thank you, Dr. Curry and Dr. George, for taking the time to moderate us this evening. I am Scott Hill, running for re-election of mayor of McMinnville. Just a little bit of brief background. Myself and my family moved to McMinnville in 1992, a little over 28 years ago. We have raised our family here. Our children are married and moved away. We have worked here. We have gone to church here. We have lived here and loved this community. When I had an opportunity to transfer with my work, I came here and I fell in love with it. And every day that I go out, I'm still in love with this community. I'll tell you why I'm running for re-election. My background is I've spent 26 years on the budget committee. I've spent 12 years as a city councilor for Ward 1, 2 of those years being the council president. I'm doing this because I love this community. I want to give back, and I'm experienced to be able to get us through the COVID time. And so with that, many other things that we will be talking about later, but I'm excited for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. And now Heidi Parker is up and Chris Chenoweth is on deck.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Linfield and Chamber, for having us this evening and giving us a chance to introduce ourselves and speak to people that haven't quite got a chance to see us or meet us. My name is Heidi Parker. I'm running for mayor of McMinnville this year. And I was raised in Montana on an 18,000 acre cattle ranch from the young age of 3 months old. So I'm not new to hard work and boots on the ground. Lived in California, Nevada, New Jersey, retired here in 2016. I have 4 grown children. My youngest is 23, my oldest is 30. I have a granddaughter, and I decided to get involved when the homeless crisis really hit McMinnville hard a couple years back, and I started getting involved volunteering in the community and realizing that a lot of our citizens and businesses didn't have a voice. And I am here to give that voice to our county. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Now, Chris Chenoweth with Kellie Minke on deck.
Yes, good evening, and thank you again, Dr. Curry and Dr. George and Linfield and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this. I know it takes effort to put things like this together, so thank you very much for doing it. I moved here in 1982 at the age of 12, came here from the Seattle area to a town of just under 15,000. It was a hick town, and I hated every minute of it when I first got here. As you can imagine, coming from a big city to a little town. But it didn't take long for me to fall in love with McMinnville, and 38 years later, I'm still here. In 2017, I had my first grandchild born, and while turning 30 and 40, age didn't impact me. Having a grandchild born did have a tremendous impact on my view of the world. It was no longer just me and my house. Now there was another generation and another house across town that I had to consider what I was doing and leaving for them. And I was looking at the homeless crisis, and I felt just like, as Heidi has stated, I felt like there were members of our community that didn't have a voice and were not being treated equal to what was happening throughout our community. And I wanted to provide some leadership and some help for those voices that felt left out of the discussion. I'm running again in 2020 because my love for the community, as you can see across the top, Chris Chenoweth, for the love of Mac, hasn't changed. I love this town. It's my hometown. I want to give back, and I want to help it keep the feel of McMinnville as we've known it to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kellie Minke with Brittany Ruiz on deck.
Good evening. My name is Kellie Vinky, and I'm your city councilor for the last 16 years for Ward 2. My husband and I came to McMinnville in 1980. We've lived here 40 years. We've raised our daughters, Lieutenant Colonel Tanya Minke and Mrs. Tricia Brost. We have 3 grandchildren, and we love this town. Fortunately, our youngest daughter was able to live here quite a while before she moved to California. I have worked here in town as in my own public accounting firm for 27 years. Prior to that, I worked in other various jobs within the city, but they were small jobs compared to owning a business. I look at this time as a real opportunity because there is so much happening. Over the last 4 years, this is kind of the culmination of a number of things that we have been focused on for quite some time. One of them is the UGB expansion, and we think that we will be able to finalize that by December this year. Another is, I guess I'm out, sorry. Oh, at any rate, am I still speaking? Okay. I'm sorry. Wrap up. Okay. At any rate, thank you very much. I look forward to talking with you on other topics.
Okay, Brittany Ruiz, and then Adam Garvin is on deck.
Hi, I'm Brittany Ruiz. First of all, I want to thank Linfield and McMinnville Chamber for putting this on, and also Dr. George and Dr. Curry. Thank you for having me. I moved here in 2015. We had a wonderful opportunity with a job offer to move from Florida to Oregon. And I, of course, jumped at that opportunity and told my husband to get the job. I'm moving because I've always loved Oregon anytime I've ever visited. And I remember when I traveled here for work a long time ago, I went to Serendipity and I got to go downtown 3rd Street, and I just fell in love with McMinnville a very long time ago. So when I decided to settle to Oregon, we picked McMinnville, and I absolutely love everything about it. I am running because as a small business owner for over a decade and also a chamber member, there have been a lot of concerns where our dinner table used to be about how we love McMinnville and how quaint it was, to a lot of the issues that people felt were not being represented on the council. So I'm running to restore trust and restore balance, and to restore family representation and business representation on the council.
Thank you. Okay, next is Adam Garvin, and Tynan Pierce is on deck.
Hi, I'm Adam Garvin, your Ward 3 City Councilor, third generation resident, born here in town at the old hospital where Walgreens is. Went to public school and then did a brief stint at Linfield. And the reason I'm running for re-election is I feel that there's some unfinished business from my first term. We spent a good amount of my first term working through a strategic plan and collaborating with citizens and regional partners to put that together. And I would like to see that through while maintaining the livability and culture of McMinnville. And as somebody that has boots on the ground experience, attended 4 years of city council meetings before my first term, I feel I'm the best candidate to be the blue collar voice for the McMinnville City Council.
Okay, and last up on the first question is Tynan Pierce.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here tonight. Just want to echo the same sentiments. Thank you to Linfield. Thank you to the chamber. And also thank you to all the other candidates. It's really great to have an opportunity to hear all your ideas and also to be able to have an opportunity to share my own. So much appreciated. Grateful for that. I'm here tonight to introduce myself, which is I'm Tynan Pierce. Live here with my wife, Michelle. She owns a business downtown on 3rd Street. She's a naturopathic physician. We have 2 young daughters, 9 and 6 years old. They're going to public school here. We really love McMinnville. We're really excited to be here. And I am really excited to participate more in our civic process. I've been working a lot with the McMinnville's People Collective to develop and co-create a platform that really focuses on intersectionality and how we can make sure that we are being expansive in our thinking so that all of the systems that we create can facilitate more engagement from the really diverse population of ideas and people and places within this community. So I'm really looking forward to sharing those ideas tonight, and also just to have the opportunity to hear from the other people. So thank you so much.
Candidates for those responses. For the next 5 questions, remember that you will have 2 minutes to respond. And our next question it's kind of a 2-part question, and it is this. It has been said of the city that it is not listening to constituents when making decisions. This relates to many issues that come before city council, where constituents that have spoken in testimony have perceived that their comments were not heard by the council. How are you, as a city councilor, going to ensure that your constituents are heard when you are making decisions? And how do you plan to bring them along when they don't always see eye to eye with you? And we're going to start this with Chris Chenoweth, and Brittany Ruiz will be on deck.
Great question. You know, that this is one of the reasons you've heard at least 3 of us echo this concern with the city council, that there has been a feeling like businesses and residents are being left out of the discussion process. And I think this goes first to a failure to really engage before the decision is made. You know, I've been talking about in various different forums, you know, social media is not going away. Yet the city of McMinnville doesn't use social media at all, that I can tell, effectively to reach out to constituents. I've seen frequently stakeholders that have basically been ignored. And a classic example led to the repeal of the emergency tax and per bed tax, as the stakeholder that came to the table late in the game was basically shut out because he showed up too late. Not a good way to, as far as I'm concerned, to carry on conversations with the community. So from my perspective, what will I do to ensure that? First off, I'm going to listen. Second off, I'm going to try to utilize every available medium to get the word out. Just putting a notice in the back of the paper is not effective. I think we need to be engaging with the paper so that topics that are important are actually being printed in the paper. I think we need to be working with social media. I think we need to be working with pollers, doing polls and surveys to get a better idea of what the community actually feels on a topic before we hit the dais with the conversation. And I think we need to make a real strong effort to get all stakeholders to the table. I've proven already through this campaign, I'll engage anywhere. That's been dangerous at times, but I'll pretty much engage anywhere, anytime with anybody. And that's the best way to actually make people feel like they're going to be heard. And then of course, good collaborative talk is how you make sure they feel like that you can bring them on with the decision you make. And I'm out of time.
Thank you.
I love that. I'm ready. I love that question because that's pretty much why I decided to run. And it was my conversations with local business owners and members of our community who actually echoed that statement almost exactly, where basically a lot of the decisions or the franchise tax, for example, I was a chamber member when that franchise tax was being voted on, and us businesses felt like we never even got a head start. We never even knew about it until it was up for a vote. And that for me is a huge, it's just not fair to us, the guys who are trying to give back to the community, wanting to be a part of that conversation. I, as somebody who has championed public meeting laws being followed to a T, also being on, attending the meeting at the Capitol on Public Records Advisory Council, I believe that I come with a strong background of doing anything and everything we can do to make sure the entire community is included in these discussions and these conversations. And if something is not fully flushed out or resolved, we're not going to pass it yet. We need to have another city council meeting. We need to have those stakeholders involved in those meetings. And we need to make sure that their voice is represented before we go ahead and push a vote. And I would say that that's probably the biggest thing I felt is lacking, is that we need to not rush things through, especially now with COVID. We need to take a step back and make sure that we are looking at all aspects of this and making sure all voices have been heard, whether it's even if we do a mailer, or if we use emails, or if we use social media. Chris brought up a very good point that social media is not used to notify people about a potential tax or fee. I think the current candidates have been using it for those, and I think that's admirable. But the city should be doing that as well, and the city should also make it very easy to engage with citizens. And it takes about 6 prompts for me to get signed up for the email system. Let's make it easier. Let's make it more business and family and resident friendly. And that's my answer to your question.
Great. Thank you, Chris and Brittany, for that. Next up is Kellie, Menke, and Tynan Pierce. You're on deck.
Well, I am a listener. In my life as a CPA, I listened when I served on boards, I listened, and as a member of your government, as a city councilor, I listen with discernment. And I also read my packets very carefully. I am aware that, you have to be aware in this situation that you have to stick to the rules. I think the city does quite well with this. For many years now, we've been doing our sessions online with MCM, and I think they're put on YouTube every week. In addition to that, we post them the Thursday at least before in the newspaper, and then usually there's a synopsis after the meeting to talk about what the decisions were that were made. So I do want to point out that there is a fair amount of information already out there that is easily accessible by most people. As a city councilor, I feel that it's important to balance decisions for the benefit of the community and the city. I strive to do the best for everybody, for the community. But we must abide by the laws, and we're bound to. And we cannot satisfy everyone all the time. So I want you to be aware that, there's a lot of things about decisions that people have been unhappy about, but there are opportunities, for them to listen to. We do try very hard to make decisions very publicly and disseminate the information very, very carefully.
Thank you. Tynan?
Yeah, this speaks to basically one of the core platforms of the campaign that we've designed here, which is that I'm not running as a representative. I'm running as a delegate that is a part of a larger system where we actually have assemblies and we vote on matters, and then I'm bringing those to you as a city council. And so that's what we want to replicate. We want to figure out ways that we can get the most wide range of diverse voices engaged as possible. There's literally no such thing as like lowering the barriers enough. We need to make sure the playing field is completely level so that anyone that wants to engage in our civic process can. And we need to make sure that we are actively engaging with our civic community to make sure that they want to participate. I mean, right now, it sounds like there are some things that are being done. That's great. There's no such thing as too many things being done. We can do more. We can always do more. And so right now, in the process that we're establishing with myself and McMinnville's People Collective, I'm running as part of that. This is not just about my voice. This is about all of the voices collectively speaking together and deciding on things as a group. And the more people that are doing that, the better. The more that our neighborhoods are involved, the best people that know about how to make decisions in the community are the people that are just living here. None of us are any better equipped to answer the questions than anyone else. No matter if you're the oldest person that's lived here or the youngest person that's lived here, we all have valuable insights that need to be recognized. You're a business owner, you're a worker at a business. We all have the same amount of valuable insight to bring to the table. And so as we move forward in this process, I'm excited. I think this is an amazing opportunity that we can take and say, yeah, like what's the most amount of participation we can have? And what are the things that we can develop to make sure that happens? Like, let's co-create new systems that facilitate the most amazing, expansive amount of engagement from our diverse community as possible.
Great, thank you for that answer, both of you. Next up, Adam Garvin with Heidi Parker on deck.
Great question. Engagement was one of the reasons that made me start attending council meetings back in 2013, as I was attending initially to advocate for cannabis at the time, and there were some special meetings that were held out of rotation from your typical second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. And I, as a citizen at large, did not understand that and didn't understand the state requirements that were put in place for the council to meet deadlines to make that happen, and there wasn't any communication. So my first term on council, I've been a strong advocate for anytime we have the opportunity for engagement, even if it looks like it won't be a contested matter, I still like to have a public hearing. And if nobody shows up, nobody shows up. But I want to give the citizens the opportunity to do that. In our strategic plan, we called out the need for more engagement and to identify those and remove those barriers. And I think we have started to do that. Social media was one of the things we did call out in that. And I still think there's a ton of work for us to do on getting a social media presence as a one unified voice as a council, but there is public meeting laws in place. And so we, as 6 councilors, can't show up and have a discussion in a forum, and maybe only 4 of us showed up, but we would have a quorum. And so those are now subject to public meeting laws. And so, yes, we need engagement. We need a presence on social media, but we also need to make sure that we follow the law of the state and don't get the city into some liability issues.
Heidi, you're up next.
Okay, great. Thank you. As mayor, one of the responsibilities of a mayor is to set the agenda along with our city manager. So part of setting that agenda is to encourage people to come to your meetings and set up a platform that people feel like they want to be heard. The issues that we're having now is community engagement. Nobody is showing up to these meetings. We have a community of 34,000 people and nobody shows up to the meetings. Why is that? Some are ill-informed, some don't know what's going on, some just don't care, others don't feel included. So we need to encourage engagement. We need to make everybody feel welcome, like they want to come to the city council, speak up and be heard. I started getting involved. When I started getting involved and coming to the city council meetings, I can speak from personal experience that people didn't feel welcome. They didn't want to be heard by the city council. For example, I spoke up at a city council a few years back and City Council President Kellie Minke actually laughed at me. So these are the type of things that I want to bring differently to our city council. I want everybody to come to the meetings, speak up. Follow up is huge. When you tell a constituent or a county, a city person that, hey, listen, I've heard Mayor Hild say, leave your number with Claudia, I'll get back to you. But do you really follow up? Do you get back with them? Follow up with people. Let them know they've been heard. Echo back what they have said to you so they know that you heard them. Let them finish and don't cut them off if they have something important to say. As mayor, I will let the people of McMinnville speak and be heard. I will not cut them off. I will not subject them to a limited amount of time if they feel like they have something really important that needs to be said, because this is your town. You pay the taxes. You live here. You run the town. We work for you. We need to turn it back to that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Adam. And we'll finish up this round with Mayor Hill.
Well, thank you for that question. I have been a banker for 37 years, and it's all about listening, understanding the needs of individuals. And so I bring that to City Council and my years there. One thing that many people don't know is on a monthly basis, I have the opportunity to meet with the chair and the CEO of the chamber, Downtown Association, YCAP, the hospital, Mac Water and Light, the school district, and then with a group of individuals called MAC Leadership that's formed through the chamber, and now we're doing Yamhill Leadership. I am communicating with those that represent so many people of what we need to be doing. I don't know that that's known, but that's something that I have taken on and do at least an hour every month with each of these organizations. I think the other thing that the council has done more recently is we've created work sessions where we take an opportunity to look at the issues coming before the council well in advance, and we broadcast those. We get that information out so individuals truly have an opportunity to go through the discussion period that the council goes through. You know that through laws, we're not able to meet as a group. It's open meeting laws, and so everybody in the community has the opportunity to have that same discussion as we're having. We do video, and we're proud to have put that into place 4 years ago, the video, and that's a lot of people are taking advantage of that, not leaving their home. Again, one of the things I've learned through this campaign is the need to use social media, and an old dog learning new tricks. I'm trying to do that very effectively. Many of our departments are already doing that effectively, and so the administration needs to do that. Thank you.
Well, thank everybody for their thoughtful responses on that question. Our third question tonight comes from Linfield students, and it is, McMinnville's facing many challenges. What do you think are the two most important challenges facing our city, and how will you address them? We will begin with Kellie Minke with Brittany Ruiz on deck.
Well, one of the most important challenges I feel that we are addressing at this point in time is affordable housing. I feel very strongly that, we need to do something about this. We meet on the Affordable Housing Committee on a monthly basis, and we can do so much with all sorts of different incentives and with zoning issues and things like that. But the one thing we don't have is land. It's desperately needed to provide affordable housing for people that live here and for people that are in, working wage jobs. So what you need to know is McMinnville has you have to build within the UGB if you're a city. And each city is supposed to have a 20-year land supply, but it's been 30 years since McMinnville passed an UGB expansion or urban growth boundary expansion. So all that's left after the 4 large subdivisions go in, which are in various places in the city, is small infill places throughout the city. We do still have some industrial land, but that's it. So it's very important that we go forward with this UGB. As it looks right now, we might be able to pass it by the end of this year. It will still take 3 or 4 more years to fully implement. The other most important thing I feel is jobs. We desperately have a situation with COVID where we need to provide any incentives we can for jobs. It is heartbreaking to see businesses and people lose employment, and businesses have to fold because there just isn't people coming to their business. In order to do this, I think we need to avail ourselves of the services of the MEDP, the McMinnville Economic Development Committee. There's also the committee that I'm co-chair on, which is the Economic Vitality Livability Committee. And we could also avail ourselves of through the COG with SEDCOR. And then the Chamber of Commerce and the state business forum that will help us. So it's very important. We've been able to give out some 57,000 in grants, and then we will take back what monies we used for matching. It was over 200,000. So the difference of about 74,000 will be available to do further work, hopefully in the job sector. And the rest of the money will go back for round 4 for other larger businesses. So those are.
Okay, thank you very much. Brittany is up next, and Adam Garvin is on deck.
That's a very good question. I feel like there's several. There's not just any one number of issues. I think when I surveyed the community before I even decided to run, I would say the community feels very strongly about the homeless situation, housing, and services for our children. I would say, based on my current information, there are actually 300 job openings right now. Our issue has nothing really to do with jobs. It has to do with having a support system for our local businesses, for families, and for people who actually have kids at home right now and they can't work because of the fact that there's no place to put their children. There's no schools available for in-person education, and some people financially cannot support the cost that comes with daycares. So I would say that we really have to regroup and restructure our priorities given COVID, because of the fact that the burden on small business owners and on businesses is literally on them 100%, including the families that are no longer able to show up for work because they have kids at home. So I would say focusing on those core issues, homeless, housing, and also making sure we're absolutely providing any and all business incentives to get needed services in our community so families feel like they can go back to work and they can get a job.
Thank you. Adam Garvin is next, and then Tynan Pierce is on deck.
Great question. Narrowing it down to 2 is definitely a challenge, but you know, if I was going to go off 2 things, I would definitely say livability would be the first one, and that's going to be, you know, encased in that would be the affordability of a house and the ability to afford that house by having a job that's local, that you can live here, work here, and raise your kids here, and so you're not just commuting. I think we can maintain that community feel if we have employers locally that can afford the cost of living here. And as a policymaker, making sure we're doing things to control that cost of living when possible and not putting undue burden on businesses and residents when they're not justified and we can't draw a straight line of where that fee increase is going. Our costs do continue to rise as an organization for various reasons, but we need to make sure that we communicate what costs we're recapturing and why we are recapturing that. The second would be public safety. We haven't made a substantial investment in our public safety infrastructure in a very long time. We have a substation that's operated out of a residential dwelling on the north side of town. That was supposed to be a short stay. We're now a decade into that. We deploy all of our fire and EMS services out of the busiest intersection in town, which harms response times. As the city continues to expand out, we need to make sure that we can meet those response times and provide a service level that our citizens deserve. And yeah, I think for me, those two things are top of mind. Thank you.
Tynan is up, and then Scott Hill is on deck.
So right off the top, I think one of the huge issues that is approaching everybody is just reductionist thinking. Like what we're doing is we're treating everything like it exists in a vacuum. And that's just lacking nuance, and it creates all these things that don't speak to each other. So we need to embrace the idea that all of these situations end up being connected. And so if we try to isolate one thing and don't look at all the other parameters that are affecting it, we're not going to make any real and substantial change. So the lens that I like to look at things through, and the lens that a lot of people that I've been talking to look things through, is it's intersectionality. So if you have a concept like public safety, for example, well, we need to look at all of it. Are you safe if you can't afford a house? Are you safe if you don't have clean water? Are you safe if you don't have clean air? Are you safe if we don't drastically look at climate change and climate action we can do? Are you safe if there's no racial justice in this town? Are you safe if there's fear of code weirdness that can like shut down your business? Are you safe if you don't have a safe place for your children? And then alongside that, I would say that a lot of people talk about the houseless issue. And I think that we're lacking compassion as a community. And we need to look at this situation very differently. We need to look at the situation where we're at a time where people across the country are losing money, they're losing jobs, things are tenuous at best for many, many people. So how can we create a situation where we don't have underserved populations? Why do we have a homeless population? It's not that we want them to leave. We want to create a situation where everyone is safe here. We want to create a situation where everyone has an opportunity here, and not just creating these little microcosms that feel like they're little vacuums. It's intersectionality and this idea that we want to lead with compassion.
Okay, Scott is up, and then Heidi Parker is on deck.
Thank you. Very good question. I have priorities. I have 6 priorities that stem from jobs, safety, livability, equity, diversity, and inclusion, lower taxes, and partnershiping. I'll take the top 2 right now. Jobs, as Kellie had indicated, it truly is disheartening to see what has happened through the COVID situation, where businesses have literally been shut down, especially those in the service arena. And we have an opportunity as we get our hands around COVID, whenever that's going to be, is to be able to come out and assist those businesses that have put everything on the line to remain open. And that goes as far as employees. That's your neighbor, your family members that are being employed. And we're under very stressful times from that perspective. I plan to take my 37 years as a banker and bring it to the table. And Kellie had mentioned a little bit about some of the innovative programs that we've been doing, where we've been able to utilize monies to help those businesses remain open. I'll tell you what's going to be very essential is, as we move down, being able to come up with a loan program that has lower rates and longer repayments. And we're looking at doing that through the COG, which is the Council of Governments for Marion, Polk, and Yamhill County. Those are the things that I truly am going to become involved in. I think the next thing that I'd like to share is equity, diversity, and inclusion. And as we know nationally, that is an area that there's been tremendous voice, but we're putting together a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee and pulling in partners from all over the place to be able to listen, that everyone would feel that they are welcome and able to talk to us here in the city of McMinnville.
Thank you. All right, Heidi is up, and then Chris Chenoweth is on deck.
Hi. Okay, great. This is what I love about the city council that is, running for this year. We have a wide array of people that want to do different things. And so all of us have 6 or 10 things on our list. So what's great is that they're all getting covered, because if my 2, maybe somebody else's 5, 6 is at the top of the line. So my 2 are going to be our homeless and drug crisis and safety and security in our community. When I say that, our homeless issue in our community is one that we keep talking about and nobody's doing anything about. And it's not that I want them to go away or that I don't want them here, but I take the premise of the tough love approach. As a mother of a son in recovery, I've been down this road personally. I understand it from a personal level, and tough love is what works. So the individuals that want help, we help, and the ones that don't, then we don't. I want to look into things like that are working. So I really liked the way the YCAP program worked when they did the temporary housing at the motels over COVID-19. They housed 55 families, 14 received permanent housing from that program. We need to designate a place for our camping and our RVs to be. They were talking about it last year, but the location was poor. So we need to find an acceptable location where our RV residents can park safely and not be on our public streets and in the parks. Safety and security and cleanliness in our community is huge. We are coming out of a pandemic. We need now more than ever clean streets, safety, no needles in our parks, and supporting our critical infrastructure at this time. So those are going to be my 2 main issues. You know, Oregon is 3rd worst for having a drug problem, and we're 50th, dead last for treatment and facilities to help our individuals.
And our last respondent on this question is Chris Chenoweth.
Well, this is a fun one to come last on, because pretty much all of the important points have been made at this point. I do want to say that probably, you know, the UGB is right at the top of my list. Getting the fire department from a department to a fire district is at the top of my list. Jobs, very top of my list. I was in 2018, one of the things I repeatedly stated during that campaign is that we had an economy that was predominantly built on AG or ag work and tourism, which led us to a really dangerous and precarious position that if we had an economic downturn a la COVID, we were going to pay a heavy price. And here we are. We need to be taking the steps to bring businesses, high wage jobs into McMinnville, not just ag. I'm not knocking ag, excuse me. I'm not knocking tourism, the wine industry. None of that am I knocking. But you know, we have the lowest power rates in the state. Our water and sewer rates are excellent. There's no reason businesses isn't coming here, or shouldn't be a reason that businesses aren't relocating here. So we need to get to the bottom of what has stopped growth. You know, when I moved here to McMinnville, we had Hewlett Packard. We have seen large corporations leave here, and over the last 16 to 20 years, we haven't seen any come in. So I think it's time that we put some emphasis on figuring out what the roadblocks are and taking the steps necessary to bring those businesses in. And of course, on the public safety side, you know, we need to make sure we're funding our fire department and our police department adequately, and so that the services that they're providing aren't on a shoestring budget. I think in the last year and a half, we've gone from a half code enforcement to 2 full-time code enforcers. I think that priority is a little bit off when we haven't done anything with the fire department. And with that, I'm out of time. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for your responses there. This next question, question number 4, has been a concern. It is raised by both residents and businesses in McMinnville. And the question is this: municipalities are dependent upon property taxes, fees, fines, etc., to function and provide services to constituents. Businesses in Oregon are heavily taxed, and are always concerned about not only state taxes, but local taxes as well. We've touched on this a little bit, some of you had, but tell us about your platform regarding taxes, fees, fines on businesses in our community, and what you will do to ensure that those issues are not a burden to our small businesses. And we're going to start this round with Tynan Pierce, and Adam Garvin is on deck.
All right. So in this situation, that especially right now, what we're in with COVID and so many people having these loss of income and businesses struggling, I think that it's going to require a lot of creativity and teamwork to work together to figure out ways where just the idea that municipalities rely on fees and fines, like right off the top of your head, like that doesn't make any sense. Like, why do you want to rely on fines? That means you're relying on people to do the wrong thing, that then you then penalize them and then you get money from that. So to me, that whole thinking is just, it's just built to break. And so right now we have a really interesting opportunity to restructure and rethink how we want our town to feel. You know, do we want the town to feel supportive of small businesses, or do we want the town to feel like they're pushing small businesses down? You know, there's lots of ways that the community could work. There's a framework that exists where the town can encourage businesses by putting things in public trust. You know, abandoned buildings, we can put abandoned buildings in public trust. We can have collaborative spaces where the overhead's super low and we can get a lot of incubation happening in this town. We can make the commons used for the public good so that we have this amazing opportunity where the town is providing to everybody this equal playing field where you can say, oh, I have an idea that I want to do in this business. You can do your business here. We can actually make it a free market to everybody and not just kind of value these bigger businesses that have the existing capital to kind of like make it through. And we want to have like a true sense of competition where anyone that has an idea here to start a business, we make it as easy as we can for them. And through that, we'll foster a lot of amazing opportunities for people to really provide for themselves what they really want to have as like a living wage.
Great, thank you, Adam. And
Great question,
yeah,
Dr. George. You know, fees and fines, they're definitely something that doesn't sit well with me personally. Anytime that we have brought a new tax on, I've always looked at that on what are we really accomplishing with it. You know, we've had some pretty stiff garbage rate increases in my first term. What do we accomplish with that? One of them was, you know, taking a stance that we're going to send our trash out of town and try and get this localized landfill to shut down. And I think we've widely been successful in that. And that's a fee that I'm willing to own and own my vote on that. Another one was the sewage rate increase, and we couldn't draw a straight line where that money was going to go. And so I voted that one down. And I think you could depend on me to need reason and a straight line of continuity on where these fines and fees are going to go if we're going to enact them. You know, probably the biggest elephant in the room is cost recovery. And this first term, we've been pretty heavy in analyzing our costs and what it takes for our city to do business. And some things we're only capturing 10 to 15%. And so, you know, you eat an elephant a bite at a time. And I think we probably shoved a few more bites in our mouth than we should have. And if we could have spread that out a little bit, I think it would have been a lot easier on small business. So going forward, I think we need to look at the impact on not just small business, but also residents. And, you know, if you're putting a environmental bill and city policy, what's that going to do to housing prices when they're already not affordable? So let's keep McMinnville issues and McMinnville policy the right fit for McMinnville and not just enact policy to enact policy.
Great, thank you. Heidi Parker, you'll be next, followed by Mayor Hill.
Okay, great. So first off, I think that it falls back onto transparency. We need to open up and be very clear with the taxpaying citizens of McMinnville where their money is going, what it's being used for, and why we're using it that way. There's been a few issues with our current city council with passing things without fully understanding or letting the people know. Last year, there was a huge debacle with the taxing our seniors for the EMS services, and that ordinance passed without full transparency. It was then overturned to the tune that the city charter was actually even changed. That is something that frankly would not happen if I was your mayor. We also passed a 5% sewer fee increase last year, and they led the citizens of McMinnville to believe during the same city council meeting that that money would be used to go towards helping to clean up the homeless community and the city at that time, to the tune of $500,000. That money went into a general fund and was never used for any of those purposes. And to date, nobody knows where that 5% sewer increase funds went. Did it go to PERS? Did it go to, the reserves? It really doesn't matter, but tell the people where their money is going. As mayor, I will make sure that everybody knows where every single nickel goes of their tax-paying dollars. It is important now more than ever to support our local businesses, to make sure that our small businesses feel supported. We hear them. Chipping away with these little bitty fees that constantly come from our planning department is ridiculous. It is time to stop. It's time to stand up, and I'm ready to be the voice of McMinnville and for our small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Hill, you're next, followed by Chris Chenoweth.
Thank you, Patrick. When we talk about taxes, the city has no ability to raise taxes. Right now, our taxes are at $5.02 per thousand of the assessed value of your home. And so taxes are set by state statute. Fees in McMinnville, we are using, as we've said, a cost recovery for services that are being provided. Fees for building of houses, the SDCs recover some of those costs that it takes to put infrastructure in that is carried over a long period of time. It's been talked a little bit about the care facilities and why we would have fees and fines around that. Let me share something about that I think it needs to be brought out on the table. Number one, we were seeing the care facilities utilizing our EMS for non-emergency. And any time that their nurses went off shift and anything happened at the facility, they would call EMS. It was a part of their standard operating procedures. We had 500 non-emergency calls to our EMS. It put tremendous burdens on our fire and rescue departments. And in reality, the recovery of that was about $1,500. $1,500 times 500 is our taxpayers were paying $750,000 to cover what needed to be covered by care facilities. That was good legislation. That was good things. And then we had the Association for the Care Facilities come in and spend over $300,000 to tell their story. So that's just an example of doing the right thing to save taxpayers money, but then being outspent by telling a story. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. You're up, followed by Brittany Ruiz.
Oh boy. So yeah, I agree with a lot of what the mayor just said. However, it left out some huge portions of what transpired. A $200 per bed fee had nothing to do with dealing with that emergency process. And when the Oregon Healthcare Association came in to help out, they offered to assist in creating an ordinance that would have actually addressed the emergency side of this. Granted, they came with a lawyer, they came at the last minute, but they were rebuffed. They were told it's too late to be part of the process. And had they been allowed to be part of that process, then the same thing they did in other cities would have happened, which is just the emergency side, and it wouldn't have been repealed. So the story you got there was kind of an incomplete story of what really transpired. Often we hear that all the city has is fees. Well, fees, taxes, that's a distinction without a difference to most people. It's still money coming out of their pocket or coming out of their business and going into the city coffers for whatever they need. So, having that kind of nuanced argument doesn't make a lot of sense to me. As to cost recovery, I think that's not a good way to be basing how we are assessing fees to our constituents. We shouldn't be trying to have our departments be funding themselves. I think that creates a clear conflict of interest when it comes budgeting time. And again, I want to re-emphasize in a 2-year period of time, we saw 2 development fees go up. We saw building fees double. We saw at that time, when they're saying they're hurting for money, we saw code compliance in the planning department go from at 1 half-time position to 2 full-time. So if it was spending money to fill a hole, why are we hiring and adding more? And I'm out of time.
Thank you, Chris. Brittany, and then last on this round will be Kellie Minke.
Thank you, Dr. George. You know, I would say that after many, many conversations, speaking with the planning division, speaking with small business owners and with citizens, at the end of the day, it's the open up your bill and go, holy cow, my bill went up $50 a month and I have no idea why. And where is it going? And how come I don't feel like I'm getting a diamond star service in return for that fee increase? And I will say that, especially with our businesses, we need to be working better by including everyone in these conversations. The care home is another example. When I started digging into it, I started asking how many care homes were contacted? How many know that this was a problem? How many know that this fee was going to happen? A lot of the care homes had never actually talked to the fire department. So for me, it all comes back to transparency and making sure that we're actually having those hard discussions. We're bringing these people to the table. We're making sure they know exactly where that money is going and what is the stated purpose. Because at the end of the day, we have a failing city infrastructure. Our roads look horrible. I verified that we didn't have street cleaning for months because that person went out of business. And we have misplaced priorities. Why are we hiring a new assistant manager for the city when we have a higher turnover rate for our fire department and overworked and underpaid fire personnel? It's misplaced priorities. I found out another business has been waiting 3 months to get their permitting approved. Another business 7 months. We have to get back to battery and make sure that we are working within our means. And if we need to get grants, if we need to get partnerships, if we need to figure out how we are going to work with what we have and reprioritize our budget to make sure our services are the best, our facilities are the best, the safety of our community is awesome, and that no families feel like they have to go outside of the city to go to a park or to do their services or to go to swim. So that's mainly, I just want to identify exactly where those taxes and those fees are going, and that businesses and residents feel that they're included in those conversations before anything is passed. And we talk about how we're not putting taxes. Doesn't it shock you that we're at the max of taxes and now we have to go all these other ways to figure out ways to fund the city? Well, where is our money going to begin with that we have that?
Great, thank you, Brittany. And our last respondent on this round will be Kellie Minke.
Thank you, Dr. George. Well, not to beat the care centers too hard, but maybe just to respond, the chief of police, the city manager went out and talked to every care facility in town. There's a well-documented history of all of these care facilities. Each and every one of them have had fines and other things against them for a number of years, for the last 10 years, over 400. The fact of the matter is, even though the tax was, or the assessment, the fee was not passed, we're all paying for this with our taxes because there's no choice. And what I want to point out here is the expenses at the city are rising faster than revenues. How do we meet this reality without burdening the citizens by raising fees? Costs for public safety, roads, building, maintenance and replacement, staff wages, equity for our employees along with PERS, the public employees retirement system, which by the way is growing in double digits and will for at least the next 5 years, as opposed to our 3% increase in property taxes on an annual basis. The services needed for wastewater, sewer, planning, Building, recreation, and library services continue to grow, and with it, our expanding population. These services make a lot of sense to me because we are providing these services that they desperately need. Our audit committee comprised of me, the mayor, and staff and citizens, continues to make sure we do all we can to provide you with the most efficient government possible. You need to be aware that we are spending our money as efficiently as we possibly can. And that's where I'm at.
So the spotlight has recently shone on racial inequalities and tensions in our nation. What should the city do to address issues related to race and inclusion? We'll begin with Scott Hill with Heidi Parker on deck.
Thank you, Dr. Curry. That was one of my top issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's something that as we put our strategic plan together, we had over 100 individuals meeting with us and over 1,000 on surveys, and it's something that is a part of our strategic plan. We have, through the dedicated services of our HR person, Kellie, we have created a diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I'm going to put leadership in with that. And what that means is that every member of our staff is going to have DEI training within the month. Every member of the council is going to have that. Our police department is going to have very, very specific training that's going to help them be in a position to be able to treat everybody fairly. I think more important from my perspective is that every citizen, no matter race, color, creed, whatever, feel like they are accepted. We are a city that's known for acceptance and inclusion. And so as we have an opportunity, I think we need to also bring leadership to help people understand how they can get involved in government, how individuals can truly feel like they are a part of this beautiful, livable community. And so again, over the next 3 months, we will put together a committee made up of numerous individuals that will help the council make sure that we are focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The last thing that I would indicate is that I'm also working at a state level with various mayors to bring this statewide and bring that training to those that need it in large, medium, and small cities. Thank you.
Okay, Heidi Parker is next, and Chris Chenoweth is on deck.
Hi, great question, especially at this time in 2020 and what we're facing with the things that are going on. I have a saying that, I didn't create it, but it's one I repeat often. There's one race, the human race. There is no room anywhere this day and age in 2020 for any sort of racism, diversity, exclusion. Everybody deserves to be here. Everybody's human and we all bleed red. Mayor Hill states that, we're all inclusive community. And frankly, I will disagree with him. I'm in a biracial marriage and I've seen some signs of racism in our community and it's unacceptable. And as your mayor, I will do my very best every single day to stamp out any sign of racism, division, unacceptance, bigotry, any label you want to put on it. There's no room for it here and not in our small community. There's a kind of an undertoned current in our community of kind of a good old boys club in the McMinnville way. And being a new girl in town and running for office, I'm being told I'm not doing it the right way. I need to join a committee and I need to get more involved and I need to learn, I need to climb the ladder, so to speak. We're in 2020, ladies and gentlemen. And I would be the first female mayor of McMinnville. And we don't have a problem. You answer that question yourself. Thank you.
Chris Chenoweth is next, and Kellie Minke is on deck.
I like this question. Thank you. First off, there is no place in governance or in our city for racism of any kind, or bigotry toward somebody of a different skin color, somebody of a different sexual preference, gender, any bigotry, or even religious bigotry. There shouldn't be bigotry of any kind toward any people for what they believe or what they feel. We need to be making sure that anybody who comes before the city council feels like their voice is equal, from the homeless person to the business owner, from the Hispanic to the Black American to the Native American. It does not matter. Everybody's voice needs to be treated equally. We shouldn't be preferencing one over another, regardless of the situation. And I think that's one of the keys that I'm going to bring to the table. You know, a lot of people don't know my background. I grew up in Seattle. My first 8 years was in downtown Seattle. My next 4 years was in a suburb called Edmonds. In downtown Seattle, I took a city bus to my elementary school and then to daycare afterwards. And I can tell you what we call racial diversity in McMinnville is not racial diversity. You know, what I saw on the city buses, what I grew up with in elementary schools was a lot different than what we see here. And when I came here, I think we were already at 30% Hispanic in this community. I just grew up learning, I don't see color. We just treat everybody equally, and everybody needs to feel safe and able to come before us and talk to us. In my last few seconds, I want to say one more thing about the nursing home debacle. I talked to the fire department and asked them, since it was repealed, have the emergency calls increased? And they said no, because OHCA is now training the nursing homes like they would have had they been given a seat at the table. Thank you.
Kellie Menke is next, and Brittany Ruiz is on deck.
Thank you. Diversity, equity, and inclusion training, it's essential in our town. But first, we all need to focus on ourselves being more inclusive and being more empathetic. I do feel that this town does at times have trouble understanding those concepts. As a person whose mother-in-law was Japanese, whose sister was a lesbian, I do understand that people are ostracized and treated badly in certain situations. It's become recently very clear to me when we were discussing equity in housing that in rental situations, there's a great deal of discrimination going on within the city. And it's of great concern to us in the Affordable Housing Committee. And we're doing a special study on it, trying to find means of helping people understand how they might be discriminating, you know, because it's important for them to step up and, you know, be more reasonable for these people that are trying to work a job and find a place to live. As I look at it, I am an anti-racist in training. I feel it's extremely important for us to focus on this particular issue. We do need to hold ourselves to be accountable, do more to ensure that we are being inclusive and being non-judgmental about what the choices people make. And as the mayor stated, we on the council have determined that we are going to form a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee who will be of various members of marginalized people, and they will advise us on diversity and equity issues. I think that's about all I have to say on it.
Thank you. Brittany Ruiz is next, and Adam Garvin is on deck.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Curry. That's a very good question. I think our family has been actually subject to a lot of that this last month, both my husband being Hispanic and our religious preferences and our affiliations. So I would say right from the get-go, the biggest thing that I'll bring to the table is that I want to make sure everyone's voice is heard. That if you bring up a concern to the council, especially being a minority family, that you're not cut off or that you think your voice is not important. I think that's incredibly important given this day and age. One of the biggest things that we can also improve on is accessibility from minority families to our public facilities. Last year, when we did have in-person schooling, or was it earlier this year? Oh my gosh, it was actually earlier this year. There's a wonderful grant that the McMinnville Swim, the Aquatic Center is doing with third graders, where they're teaching children safety swimming. And what was most profound to me was the fact that the majority of the children that did not know how to swim were African American and Hispanic. That shocked me. And I helped these kids learn to swim. And the biggest thing that I found is that those families do not have access to our facilities. They don't have transportation, or they're working long hours. They don't know how to get their kid to a swim event, or it's not affordable. One of the biggest things we as a community is to make sure that our public services are available to people of all income levels. And our city council is available to everybody. And the other thing I want to mention in terms of the DEI is I've noticed a lot of the same people on these other committees. That person's on this committee, that person's on this committee. How come we do not reach out and we make sure that everybody is invited to be a participant on these committees, and that we're not just pick and choosing our best friend or somebody we know? Let's make sure we have let everybody in the community know that they have an opportunity to be on these committees, including not just the DEI committee, but all the committees in McMinnville.
Adam Garvin is next, and then final is Tynan.
Great question. At a high level, I would just like to say that I've always been strong to make sure that every voice is heard and be the most approachable counselor that I can be. From a city perspective, I do feel that we have some progress that we can make in this environment. We have come a long ways since I've been on council. We strategically called this out in our strategic plan. We've been doing a number of different things throughout the years, working with the alert program through UNIDOS, which is a law enforcement relations team. We've had mental health outreach, homelessness liaison. As the mayor said, we have staff going through DEI training, council going through DEI training, and then the PDs going through DEI training and implicit bias training by the end of the year. And then they'll also have a DEI plan for the years to come. I don't think that we're where we need to be, but as far as the council goes, I feel we're fairly diverse up on the dais currently. And we bring a lot of different perspectives there. And then as far as moving forward, I want to make sure that we get a good committee formed for this DEI committee that we're accepting applications on right now. Make sure that we take their recommendations to heart and let them affect policies and change, but make sure that we're fixing McMinnville's problems with McMinnville's solutions and not taking national solutions and trying to find problems in McMinnville. So right size, right fit for McMinnville is what I'm in favor of. And I'm happy to be a part of any DEI discussion. Thank you.
And our final speaker on this question is Tynan Pierce.
Yeah, so I think the fact that anyone's surprised that there's racism in Oregon or racism in McMinnville is like not been paying attention to history. I mean, Oregon was literally founded with laws to prevent Black people from owning property. I mean, Oregon didn't even ratify the Equal Protections Act until 1973. And it didn't ratify the 15th Amendment, which gave Black people the right to vote, until 1959. So, I mean, the idea that we're just now thinking, oh, we need diversity, equity, and inclusion training is like, come on, let's get with it. And the idea that like national issues don't play out in McMinnville, I mean, racism is a national issue and it's playing out in McMinnville. I mean, these things are all, if this is the idea of like reductionist thinking, we cannot have reductionist thinking. We literally have to think intersectionally. Like if we try to put racism in a vacuum, there's going to be no progress. So we have to really accept the fact that there is innate white privilege in this state. Like Indigenous peoples were kicked out. White people got 650 acres when they moved here. They got double that if they were married. So, I mean, let's look at the whole thing. This is not a new issue. Like maybe it's new that we're actually trying to address it, and that's great. But there's serious underlying racism issues throughout the state. definitely here and definitely nationally. So again, let's not think of this in a vacuum. Let's really work together to say, oh yeah, this is obviously an issue. Let's not turn away from it. Let's confront it. Let's actually build community engagement from a barrier-free environment so that people actually want to participate. If there's no safety for them to participate, it's like this rhetoric that keeps on going on in these conversations around keep McMinnville the way it was and keep McMinnville the way it was. It's like McMinnville's changing. Diversity is growing. We have to embrace it and celebrate diversity as a strength, not something that we turn away from.
Great. Thank you, candidates, for all those responses. I have the final question tonight, but first of all, I have to tell you, it's been an honor and a privilege to be one of your moderators tonight. Getting to know you, it's been outstanding. And I'd also like to thank each and every one of you for your selflessness, your commitment to the community, and really your passion for this community it has really been invigorating tonight. So I'd like to thank you all for running for elected office. I know it's challenging and putting yourself out there, but stepping up to help the community is really outstanding. So thank you all for that. So the final question is this, number 6. McMinnville, and we've touched on it a bit, McMinnville has a number of homeless individuals and families that need our help. Our business community, though, is being negatively impacted by these issues as well. What is your plan to address or change this growing concern in our community? And this final question, we'll lead it off with Chris Chenoweth, followed by Brittany Ruiz.
One thing I forgot, do we get a conclusion statement after all this is done? Dr. George?
Help. A conclusion statement?
Yeah, like the opening statement. Do we get to do the same thing at the end or no?
I do not see that on the agenda.
Perfect, thank you. So the homeless issue is an incredibly complex issue, and trying to address this in a single hot button 2-minute talk is it's not going to do it justice. We have a failure in Oregon to address mental illness at a level that would actually be helpful for the homeless population. We have a failure, really, we have not dialogued well on how we're dealing with the drug addicted and finding unique and creative ways to address that portion of the homeless population. And that doesn't even begin to touch the invisible homeless, which is the much larger percentage of the homeless population that would take any help they could get. So, what I'm going to say is what's in the city budget, because there's not a lot of what I just described that actually applies to the city. It's a state level, it's a federal level, and it's a county level. Am I out of time already? Oh, good. And a county level that is going to be doing the heavy lifting on the services. What the city can do is enforce the laws equally. And that's where we failed for quite a while. That's what got a lot of businesses frustrated and upset. If we just faithfully follow the laws. We passed an ordinance after much pressure on the city council. They finally got an ordinance in place that they literally took from Vancouver. They didn't create it themselves. And that was after 200 people showed up at a meeting to voice their concerns. We need to listen and we need to faithfully follow the laws. If we do that, we've done the part the city can do. I'm very impressed with, I think it's about 300,000, and Kellie Minke can correct me if I'm wrong on this, that we've invested toward affordable housing. And I'm grateful for that. It shows a desire on our current city council to try to help out. I'd like to end with this. We've seen a lot of hateful rhetoric on social media, and I'd like to challenge all of us as leaders to say we're not tolerating it from our own followers, and we're not tolerating it from our opponents' followers. That all of us need to make a very firm statement. It's time to come together and end the hateful rhetoric and the divisive rhetoric and the inflammatory language. Thank you.
Brittany Ruiz, you're next, followed by Kellie Minke.
Thank you, Dr. George. This is something that I've actually met with a lot of people on. And I think at the end of the day, from talking to law enforcement, from talking to our fire department, and local leaders, including mental health professionals, is that we really need to get back to putting a task force together of all the experts. We're talking the sheriff, the police department, the fire department, mental health professionals. We're talking about domestic violence professionals and drug experts. And let's make sure that we have identified exactly what of those people are actually wanting help, that might have a housing need. Sorry, I missed the housing expert as well. That might have a domestic violence issue. They might have a drug issue. They might have a mental health need. And let's make sure we're applying compassion in all aspects of it. For example, I do a lot of foster care reform, and unfortunately, it's a caseworker and a policeman showing up. Maybe we need to step back a little bit and make sure that, hey, what if we actually had a domestic violence expert? If that's what the issue is, that's there. And then we actually have a partner, Henderson House, who helps transfer that over. But we need to have those discussions. We need to be working together as a group. And I believe that some of those partners feel like their voices are not being represented by the council. And I believe if we bring all of those partners together, we can identify the exact needs of all of those in the community and make sure they're getting the help that they need wherever that is. 30 seconds left. I'm done.
Thank you. Kellie, Menke, followed by Tynan Pierce.
Well, McMinnville has worked very hard on this issue. It started about 6 years ago and has continued to escalate. Fortunately, we did come to the Dawn to Dusk program from Vancouver, and that at least has helped solve some of the issues with the downtown people. But what we have done over the years is through affordable housing, we created a homelessness committee, and everybody's been through that. Schools have been through it. County officials have been through it. Shelter representatives have been through it. Dave Hogberg and Kay Sawyer. Mary Stern has come to the table. We've had entertained people from the state and had them come and talk with us. Various churches have wanted to create cluster homes and things like that. And we've been more than willing to work with them on zoning and anything else. But it's difficult because, again, there is no land. And when they do have land, then they have to get their whole church together to agree to this. Now, recently, we've been really fortunate. The Housing Authority has been able to purchase 7 acres of land, and it's looking like we may have about 200 apartments built within the city limits over by the hospital that will be subsidized for housing for the homeless. In addition, we are hearing about other projects that some of the churches are more successfully fundraising and more focused, and it sounds like maybe one of those will come to fruition. There have also been churches that have additional land sites that they are considering putting Conestogas on, if we can approach the zoning and how that might happen. We have talked with various industry people and tried to get just a site at the industrial area. There's projects in Portland that, like for the Women's Project in Portland, they allow women to come and live in a place in small cottage clusters with a kitchen and bathroom facilities, and be able to live there. And I would love to see a project like that happen. And it doesn't have to necessarily be permanent, but the industrial area is very concerned about that. They're thinking that that will become a permanent residence place.
Great. Tynan Pierce, you're up. Adam Garvin, you are on deck.
Yeah, so I've been really disappointed with the way that McMinnville's interacted with our houseless community. I mean, again, houseless, a lot of them do consider McMinnville their home. And as the McMinnville's People Collective, one of the things that keeps coming up is just this lack of compassion, which is like, let's criminalize the houseless. Let's pass a camping ban, even though that's been shown to actually be cruel and unusual punishment. Like, you can't actually do that. Like, this idea of just like pushing them to the outskirts, let's get rid of them, let's get rid of them. It's just this truly sad thing where there's just no compassion, and it's just like, oh, where are we going to get the money? Oh, maybe we'll have $200,000 to $300,000 for affordable housing if we end up in this budget situation. But oh, hey, the police budget is $9 million. So maybe some of that could be diverted into some of these other things, so we can actually truly reimagine public safety in a way that isn't just so reductive on policing. It's like, why are there not more things like we have in Eugene, like the Whitebird Clinic? Like, why are there not more things where we have, why is it always like the churches that have to take care of the people that have the highest needs? Why is it always the charity's responsibility to take care of the people that are underserved? It's like we just continuously like push people to the sides and say, oh, help themselves. Oh, they'll help themselves. If they really wanted to participate, they'd come here. I mean, how many houseless people have we asked to participate in these committees? I don't know, but I would guess it's probably pretty low. And so like, let's invite these people to the table, not come up with these paternalistic ideas that, oh, we're gonna come up with a team of experts and we're gonna, fix the problem while not actually engaging anybody that's like actually in that group that's encountering this incredibly challenging thing. I mean, especially right now, where we're at a time when evictions are gonna be happening and people are at a loss of money, this could look really different. So more compassion, just more creativity.
Thank you. Adam Garvin, followed by Heidi Parker.
Thank you for the question. Definitely a big issue we've seen in my first term, and something that's not going to be going away anytime soon. So, my first term, I spent pretty much an entire League of Oregon Cities conference. Council President Menke attended some breakout sessions with me as well, where we looked at what other cities were doing. Some successes from that was our safe camping program, which we still have some people participating in that. Granted, it's not as robust as we would like, but we have limitations in that. Being the size of the city we are, we're not eligible for community block grants. Our funding for these programs comes through the county, which comes from the state, which comes from the feds. So, as much as I would like to help, we do have to realize what our limitations are as a city and build partnerships with our regional partners to come together and look at bigger solutions. I am excited about the Housing Authority's apartment complex that we did pass through council here a few meetings back. But I would agree with Chris Chenoweth that we do need to make sure that we have an even hand and enforce the policies we have on the books evenly across the board. And that said, I think if you look at the history of McMinnville, this business community will come around and really support any homeless or houseless initiative on housing once we have the trust back in that community that the city will keep the standard to the standard and not allow a free pass.
Heidi Parker, you're up, and Mayor Hill, you will finish out this round.
Great, thank you. I first want to say that people say that we have a housing crisis. I'm not saying that we don't have a housing problem. I wouldn't say that we have a housing crisis in Oregon. I would say that we have a mental health, drug addiction crisis. Home prices in Oregon are always going to be on the upper echelon of their prices due to how much dirt costs here because of our UGB and our laws that are set in place. These are two totally separate problems as I see them in my opinion. We have a housing problem. Yes, we're working on that with our UGB. Our houseless individuals are not going to, if we build those 700 homes out on Hill Road, our houseless individuals are not going to go out there and buy a $350,000 home tomorrow. So it's not a housing crisis that these people can afford. It is an issue of that we have people that are living on our streets are not receiving the mental health facilities that they need. They're not receiving the services that they need. There's not any drug rehab facilities that for people in crisis. McMinnville is 10 square miles. We have 203 501c3s in McMinnville. How many can you name? I can name probably 5 or 10 off the top of my head. Our main contributors are YCAP, Provoking Hope, Champion Team, our Yamhill County Gospel Rescue Mission, who, by the way, has been trying to get their occupancy for their men's side for, 18 months now. What is the holdup? So we keep talking that we got this great game, but nobody's doing anything about it, which is why I'm running for mayor, because I'm ready to do something about it. It is time to streamline our 501c3s. It's time to streamline with our churches. It is time to get everybody organized and say, what do you want to bring to the table? Kellie Minke brought up the point about the apartments. That's great. Let's build some apartments for affordable living by the hospital. That's years out. We have people on our streets right this minute. And I know everybody thinks I'm being harsh on this issue, and it's because I am, because something needs to be done yesterday, and I'm ready to do that.
Thank you. Mayor Hill?
Well, thank you for this question. It's one that has plagued the city for a number of years. I can tell you that we have been having successful organizations come in to teach and train our council. We've had groups coming in from Eugene, and we have put good laws and helpful approaches on the table to have them all taken away from us from the Ninth Circuit Court. And so where we're sitting right now, from my perspective, it has to do a little bit with our dollars. You know, the county is responsible for all the health and human services. That's the mental health. The city has no impact whatsoever on any of those dollars. We talked about community block grants, and any city that's over 50,000 in population receives HUD money to help with homelessness and affordable housing. Any county over 200,000 receives these community block grants. McMinnville is under 50,000. Yamhill County is under that. And we do not have those dollars that others are utilizing to help with in bringing additional dollars. So we have to work with what we have and when we have that. And so again, from my perspective, we have to put together the subcommittee on homelessness that has been running for 5 years. We have the Yamhill County Leadership, which is also a committee that's bringing all the partners together. We truly have a desire to help. We are bringing partners together, and we're doing as much as we can in today's environment. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our candidates tonight for their time and your thoughtful responses to our questions. We're fortunate to live and to work in a community with such engaged citizens. Finally, I wanted to thank Dr. Pat George, my fellow moderator, and the Chamber for being such great partners. Partnerships between education like Linfield University and the business communities are just another example of what makes McMinnville exceptional.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Curry. And again, thank you to Linfield University for their work in making this happen. Debbie Harmon Ferry. Dr. Curry, honor to meet you, man, and great working with you tonight and serving with you. And again, thank you to all of our candidates, to the students, our business community in McMinnville for all your support that you offer. That concludes our forum for tonight. And for those of you listening or watching, and for us here, we can expect the recordings. This recorded event will be posted on the Linfield University website and the McMinnville Chamber website as well. So again, on behalf of Linfield University, the McMinnville Chamber of Commerce, thank you all for participating, and have a great evening. And we wish you all the best and the best of luck. Thanks a lot. I think we are.